It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks for joining me again this morning as we have another hour lined up of some real estate chat. If you've just tuned into my program for the first time, this is what this show is all about. We talk about local, regional, national real estate trends. We apply that to what's going on here in the Low Country. I share my experiences as somebody that's been in the market now for 11 years here, about 1,000 transactions under my belt. My team and I sold almost 200 homes last year, so we bring those experiences to you. We share our stories with you. We help you understand what's going on in this market so that you can set some realistic expectations for yourself, understand the market in general, and when it comes time for you to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you're more educated and wiser than the next guy. You get a better deal. So that's the whole point of this show. If at any point in time you'd like to reach out to me, you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, my team and I would love to help you. I can be reached at 843-345-1273. That's 843-345-1273. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Learn more about who we are, what we do, what we've sold, our marketing. You can listen to previous versions of the show. I've been doing this show for, this is my 5th year doing this show. Time has flown. And speaking of which, last year was probably the fastest year by far of my life. And I was talking to my father-in-law about this last night because they're visiting us this weekend. And, you know, I said I probably spent more hours awake in 2016 than I did at any other point in my life because last year I had my second child. My wife did. And so now we've got a daughter and a son. And he's 7 months old now, actually 7 months today. So happy 7-month-old birthday, Nolan. But spent a lot of time awake. And so, it's kind of funny how you spend more time awake, less time sleeping, but the year goes by faster than ever before. And it certainly seemed to be the case with real estate. It just seemed like we never lost a beat. The market did not slow down. For some it did, and some are kind of scratching their head wondering why. If I had my home on the market last year and it didn't sell and it was such a great market and things did not slow down like you're saying, Brian, well, then why didn't my house sell? So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the program. Toward the first half of the program, we're going to talk about some common fears associated with buying and selling real estate. So we're going to talk about 5 common fears when buying a home, 5 common fears when selling a home. And then toward the tail end of the program, we're going to talk a little bit more about the interest rates here. Kind of what has led us to this point, what people are I think, perceiving to be the case with interest rates. Look, nobody has 20/20 vision in either direction, both behind us or in front of us. So I'm going to do the best I can to tell you what I think is going to happen based on the research I do for this show. And of course, the fact that I'm in the market selling real estate every day for over a decade. Give you my opinion on that, not just what I think is going to happen to interest rates, because that's incredibly speculative and I'm not an economist. But I'm going to tell you how I think the market's going to react to it here in the years to come. Now, I do want to say that I'm in the studio taking your calls this morning. So if you have something that you'd like to chat about, a comment, a question, a story, feel free to give me a call. The number here in the studio is 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. And remember, if you want to reach out to me outside of this program, 345-1273, 843-345-1273. Or listingsincharleston.com. Remember, 2.4% commission to sell your house. Lowest commission in the industry for anybody that sells anywhere near the amount of homes that I do. So 2.4% listing commission. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the 5 common fears associated with buying a house. And let's face it, buying and selling real estate can be a scary process. It's stressful. There's no such thing as a stress-free transaction, no matter how many agents tell you that that's their goals. Hey, my goal is for you to have a stress-free transaction. Sorry, impossible. I've been doing it long enough to know that there is always going to be stress. And that's just the reality of doing something this major. I mean, for a lot of people, buying a property is the single largest thing that they will do with the single largest amount of money in their lifetime. And so there were a lot of fears associated with that transaction, both known and unknown. A lot of the people tend to focus on fear of the unknown. And of course, it's the responsibility of the real estate agent to help them calm those fears by providing information that helps them understand what's going to happen before it happens at key points in time. So let's start with number one, which should be obvious, which is price. Are buyers paying a fair price for the house? Are they overpaying? What if similar properties in the area start to sell for less and prices start to drop? Should the buyer have waited? Or did they pull the trigger too late? You know, it's interesting. When it comes to price, it's our job as the real estate agent to help you determine what we feel that property is worth. We provide you with an independent third-party opinion of value. That's what we think the asset is worth. Now, what we think it's worth and what you think it's worth might be two different things. In most cases, it usually is. So let me give you an example. Because, one of the questions here is, are they overpaying? Should they wait? So let's say that somebody has been in the market looking to buy a home for the past 6 months. And every time they find something they like, it's a multiple offer situation, and they end up losing the property. And so now 6 months down the road, they find something that they really like, and they're going to go ahead and just pay the asking price. They think the asking price is somewhat fair. Yeah, it might be a little bit higher, but it's good enough, and they want the house. They want to buy the house. Now, to them, they might agree that they might be slightly overpaying for the house, but it's what they're willing to pay. If the real estate agent says, look, this home is worth $300,000, and if you decide to pay $305,000, then you're paying that $5,000 because you want the house. So we understand the investment side of it, but we also understand the emotional side of it. But think about this. 6 months ago, when they were looking and they found something they really liked, if they had just increased their price a little bit, they would have likely paid less then than they're going to pay now because prices were lower then and interest rates were lower then. So the challenge in waiting is that you don't know what's going to happen in this market. I've talked to a few people that think prices are going to start declining. I don't think that's the case. In some very specific markets or segments of our market, maybe. There is some information that's hinting that that might be a possibility at some point in the future, but it's not necessarily happening now. What is going to happen, in my opinion, is that in some areas of Charleston that have experienced rapid price appreciation, we're going to start to see the rate by which properties appreciate start to slow down a little bit. People are going to think that that's a decline. It's not. It's just a reduction in the increase. There's a difference. Number two would be buying a money pit. This is a big concern for every buyer, no matter how novice or seasoned they may be. If the inspection finds major issues, or what if there are more problems of a deeper nature that are discovered after they move into the property? If a seller wants to sell the property as is, I think a buyer's going to tend to wonder, well, what are they hiding? What's wrong with it? So if buyers are planning to renovate, they sometimes worry that the remodeling process will reveal some large-scale issues, maybe something like a foundation problem or hidden termite damage that could cost significant amounts of money later on to repair. Or maybe we identify something that needs to be fixed, and the seller says, look, rather than fixing this issue, I'm just going to give you some money because I don't want to have to deal with all of that. I don't want to have to live through that major repair. I'm going to give you the money and you can deal with it. So obviously the buyer is going to say, well, look, if you're giving that burden to me, I'm going to need a little buffer. I'm going to need to make sure that you're not handing me a can of worms. If I start to peel back the layers of this onion and understand and realize that things can and will go wrong throughout the course of renovating a property, if we see something that on the surface looks bad and as we start to repair it, it just gets worse, and I don't have enough money from you to fix it, then that's not a good enough deal for me. So as a buyer, we look at that and we obviously combat that concern in several different ways. We get a good inspector, not one of these inspectors like I had last week that was just awful. I mean, it may as well have been his first home inspection. And I'm not going to get into the details, but there are clear differences between inspectors that know what they're doing and inspectors that do not. Some of the issues that were found we had looked at by a contractor, very good contractor. And he's like, all these things that he's referencing, this actually doesn't even exist. So we talked to the inspector. Oh, I'm sorry, that was carried over from another inspection report. I don't know what happened there. Right. So you get a good inspector, you get a good agent that knows how to negotiate these kinds of things to make sure that you're not buying a money pit. But we also determine that up front. Are you willing to do major repairs and renovations? And are we getting a good enough deal on the real estate itself or on the concession from the seller based on those repairs to make that worth your while? All these things we think about throughout the process. So I'm in the studio. We're going through these things. If you have questions, give me a call, 843-556-1250. Maybe you have a story, something you'd like to share. But on we continue. Number 3, the neighbors in the neighborhood. A buyer often fears that moving into a neighborhood and discovering that it's not really what they thought it was. What happens to those neighbors who smiled and waved at you as you drove past them? What if they're not quite so friendly? They turn out to be kind of weird. What if you discover some sort of crazy tenant situation next door, or cars going in and out of their driveway at all hours of the night? Look, and here's what I want to say about this. No matter how much due diligence a buyer does, there is no substitute for physically being in the neighborhood 24/7 to know what it's really like. And, pitching a tent in your neighbor's lawn isn't really an option. So do your research, trust your real estate agent with the understanding that we don't know everything. Okay, I don't know what goes on at 1 a.m. at the house down the street. I don't know the racial makeup and profile of a neighborhood, and even if I did, I couldn't tell you. Obviously, with fair housing laws, I can't give you that kind of information. I don't even want to research it. I don't want to have a discussion about it. But I know to a lot of people it's important. My advice is to do your own research. Talk to some of the neighbors. Talk to more than one neighbor. And it's kind of funny because I had a client that was asking some of these kinds of questions. I said, talk to the neighbors. They can tell you, I can't. So she talked to the neighbor, and the one neighbor she talked to ended up being the crazy neighbor in the neighborhood. Every neighborhood has a crazy neighbor. I lived in a neighborhood that had a crazy neighbor, and they just happened to be my neighbor. They toned it down over time, but they were the crazy neighbor. So talk to 2, diversify your neighbor talk. Number 4 is interest rates, and we are going to talk about this a little later on, but what if the interest rates go up before the buyers find something? What is this going to do to the affordability of real estate? I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because I've been a little long-winded on this segment. But number 5 is the house is not exactly what it seemed. And so to a certain extent, every buyer kind of falls in love with the home while wearing what I would call rose-colored glasses. This is the in-person showing kind of creates the excitement and the anticipation as a buyer, and they start to envision what their life is going to look like in that house. And during the second visit, if the market allows them a second visit and it's not already sold, then they start to think about, mentally moving in. They look at some of those hard spaces and identify uses for them. They start to look at it more objectively and how it will really work for them on a day-to-day basis. But what if the floor plan isn't exactly what they thought? What if they didn't measure and some of the furniture that they have doesn't fit in their family heirloom, doesn't go in their dining room, or, so on and so forth. So look, experiencing some of these concerns while embarking on this major life event of purchasing a home is not unusual. It's very common. The fear of the unknown and the doubts that arise are normal. And I mean, to an extent, they're actually good. It's actually a good thing because it means that you're taking the process seriously. So buyers, you can rest assured knowing that there are agents out there that can help you mitigate these fears by providing you with information, answering your questions before you can even think to ask them, telling you what's going to happen before it happens, and working with somebody that's so experienced that they put you at ease because they're identifying those things because they've been through this before. For me, I sell a home every day and a half. Almost 200 homes sold last year. This is second nature to me. It's not to you. You don't know what to ask. So when you work with an experienced agent like my team, then we help you through that process. It helps reduce the stress and reduce that fear and anxiety because we're providing you with that information up front. So if that's something I can help you with, feel free to give me a call. 843-345-1273 is my cell, 843-345-1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Every home for sale in the Tri-County area is on that site. And if you'd like to reach out to me personally, of course, you can click the contact tab. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Remember, we're taking your calls. So give me a call here, 843-556-1250 if you want to be on the program this morning.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty. Next on 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston. Thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty, as we continue our discussion about the housing market here in Charleston. If you'd like to be on the program, the number here is 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. You have a real estate comment, question, story, doesn't have to be related to what we're talking about. We're happy to take your call and hear from you and maybe answer your questions or just hear from you in general. So the number here, again, 843-556-1250. Now, if you want to reach out to me, you're thinking about hiring a real estate agent this year, you're invited to give me a call personally on my cell phone. That number is 843-345-1273, 345-1273, or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, learn more about myself and my team, and listen to previous versions of the show, see what we've sold, and take a look at the kind of properties that we represent. And of course, 2.4% commission to sell your house. Can't beat that. There's no one else in the market offering a commission that low to do all the things that we do. Spend about $20,000 a month in online marketing to expose our listings to the market. So if you're thinking about selling this year, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit, more specifically, we're going to talk now about some of the fears associated with selling your house. But I invite you to give me a call. Again, 843-345-1273 or listingsincharleston.com. So let's talk about some of these fears that come out when you're going to sell your home. And what could sellers possibly be scared of in this market? I mean, after all, they're holding all the cards, right? It's a seller's market. They decide which offers to work with and what to turn down. A buyer's fate is in their hands, and they're the ones calling all the shots, right? Well, newsflash, sellers, yes, the cards are in your favor, but you are not in as much control as you might think. Maybe 2 years ago, when things really started getting toward a seller's market, buyers were kind of in a frenzy. And what's changed between then and now is just the paradigm shift of going from a seller's market and the changes that were happening rapidly toward now being in a seller's market. There is no question it is a seller's market in the majority of the markets of Charleston. There are some that have seen some, what I would call equilibrium. Inventory has kind of risen over the past year to make up and kind of bridge some of that gap. But as a seller, I think that you just need to be realistic here. And so that's going to be one of the kind of underlying points that I want to try and make in this particular segment is that, seller, if the goal here is to sell your house and you get a good offer and it accomplishes your goal of moving on to the next stage of your life, then just move. Just go. And I'm not here to say that I don't do the very best that I can to represent my clients and get them the most money possible. But there are some sellers out there that have their noses so high in the air that they would drown if it was raining. I mean, they are so stuck on the idea that they will get everything their way in their transaction because it's a seller's market that they've been waiting now years for it. And we're going to talk next about some of these homes that have been on the market that tried selling, and sometimes they were priced well, sometimes they were marketed well, but they just did not sell. So we're going to talk about why, what we can do differently. So let's get into some of these fears, shall we? So fear number one is just selling too low. And just like the fear of buyers paying too much for a house, sellers don't want to sell their home for too low. This can be particularly true when a house sells really fast, within the first day or a few days after hitting the market. And last year I had, I don't even know the number, but I'd say at least 20, probably closer to 30 homes that sold in a few days or less. I had probably a dozen homes sell before they even hit the market. Before they were even entered into the MLS, we did some of the pre-marketing that we do. We reached out to our database. I'm not going to reveal what I do to pre-market my homes, obviously, because agents listen to this program. But what we did worked. It sold before it even hit the MLS. And the nice thing about taking a contract on a property before it hits the MLS is that you get to really have the upper hand when you're selling the property. You get to essentially tell the buyer that, look, we will take an offer before it hits the MLS, but you've got to make it worth our while because you're removing our ability to offer this home to the public. So if we're not going to have that option, then you need to make a good offer. Otherwise, we're not going to play ball. We're going to see what other buyers are going to be willing to pay. And usually that works pretty darn well. So the fear of obviously selling too low is a legitimate concern for a lot of people. And what real estate professionals know is that when this happens, it's most likely because the home was priced right, but a seller often kind of has those lingering thoughts about what if. What if they asked more money for it? The other factor that agents will rarely tell you is that you or the agent just got a little lucky. I mean, yes, your home was priced at it. It was marketed well, but the timing couldn't have been any more perfect. You were just in the right place at the right time, and you got the deal done. So, yes, there's a fear of selling too low. A lot of sellers are, in my opinion, still overpricing their property, which is one of the factors that will lead toward maybe somewhat of a slower market this year than in a few years past. So getting real about the price of your home, effectively pricing a home. My God, it is so hard for some agents to effectively price a home. Not because they want to overprice it, because they legitimately are having trouble determining value for real estate. It's something that you acquire over time. I mean, we're all trained to do it when we get our real estate license, but until you've done about 30,000 or 50,000 opinions of value on real estate like I have, then, you're going to struggle with it from time to time, especially with some of these unique and luxury properties, which we're selling more and more of now that the market supports that. So it's nice to add that to our list of things that we are now highly focused on, which is the luxury market, and we're doing a great job in that. And number two, as I continue on with this list, is how will the market respond to my home? What if a buyer doesn't run through the front door the minute we come on the market? Or the features that a seller thought buyers would be drooling over just simply get kind of a lukewarm reaction. They say, oh, that's nice, rather than wow. Or what if a buyer isn't willing to pay top dollar for the blood, sweat, and tears and money that a seller has put into the house? Well, there's a perfect house out there for everybody. Not everybody is going to appreciate the things that you do to your house or the time, energy, or money that it takes to do that. See, and this goes back to number one, is a lot of people will calculate how much money they've spent upgrading a property. I mean, I've walked into homes where they've spent $100,000 in countertops. Now, a buyer might not like those countertops. They might not value that $100,000 the same as the seller. That's why when we walk through these homes and we get all these people that call us that say, we're thinking about putting our home on the market and we're about to do this, and this. And I have to say, wait, don't do those things until I see what you're doing, if you'll allow me to, because this is common. A lot of sellers put money into their home unnecessarily. When they invest money into their home, it may or may not result in a return on investment. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it just helps the home sell faster. But before you spend money on those big ticket items, let me walk through it and tell you what I think is reasonable and unreasonable to do. And I do appreciate that when people allow me to do that, because it's a chance for me to show them that, look, let's not just go out there and start writing some checks on a bunch of stuff because we think it's going to look pretty. Putting Carrara marble counters in the kitchen is going to look great, but they are not practical. They stain. You can't put, hot pots and pans on them. Just as one example, of course. So obviously we're gonna think about things before we do it, before we put the home on the market, and then we're gonna respond to the market. We're gonna take that stuff with a grain of salt, obviously, as the home is being shown. But we are going to be open to responding to the market's response to our house. Number three, what if the buyer can't move forward? It's obviously exciting when you're getting an offer on a house, but what if their financing falls through? What if they lose their job? What if their home needs to be sold first and they accept a contract and that contract falls through? Now we've got this domino effect. That's why we as agents are very careful and should be very particular about the offers we accept. Some agents are so excited to get an offer, or they sell real estate so often that they just kind of gloss over the details because they do this every day and it's just another transaction to them, when in reality they should be taking the time to look through the contract with a fine-tooth comb, identify things that could be potential pitfalls, make those changes, or at least suggest those changes to the seller, and then kick that back to the buyer and say, look, we're not going to agree to this, this, and this. We'd like to change this to this because it works better with our time frame or whatever the case might be. And we're countering at this price because we think it's worth it. And we're actually presenting those counter offers, by the way. God, hardly any agents present offers anymore. They just send you an email and then they follow up with a text. Hey, sent you an offer. Please confirm receipt. They're not even telling you what's going on. Some agents do a good job of it, but in truth, most don't. Number 4 is, what are those inspections going to find? Every inspector out there is going to find something. I have been through well over 1,000 inspections. I have never once seen an inspection that had 0 findings on it, even on new construction, because we still get inspections on new construction homes. I think it's important to do that. Almost always we find things that I would classify as being fairly major. They're always going to find minor stuff. It's what they're trained to do. But there's fairly often there are major items that are found during an inspection on a new construction home. So, even if the sellers have taken meticulous care of their property, the inspector is going to find something. And here's one thing that I'll kind of give you a little hint on, is that in this market, buyers, because inventory is low, are likely going to give you the price that you want, or close to the price that you want, when you're selling your home and when they make you an initial offer. So once they know that you're under contract, your home is off the market, your showings slow down, tongue-tied. Then once they get the inspection, they're going to try and hit you over the head with it. They're literally going to put everything they find on that inspection report, and they're going to ask you to fix everything. And their mentality is, well, hey, let's let them know everything that's on that list. And even if they don't fix everything, then at least they'll know how long that list was, so that when I go back to them with my more realistic list, I've got a better chance of getting it accepted, because it's certainly much less than everything I could be asking for. So they're going to kind of bait and switch you a little bit. But every once in a while, a buyer finds a seller that's a sucker and just agrees to the whole list. And I'll tell you that about 95% of the time, sellers don't need to do all that. In fact, they really just need to go over the major items and determine whether they're going to fix it or offer a concession, which would be reducing the price or offering some closing costs or something, rather than getting that done. And then the last thing, of course, is showings but no offers. Look, the showings are working, and we're getting all these people through the door. We've had 70 showings, but we haven't had an offer. Well, I'm going to talk about that next. I'm going to talk about these homes that have been on the market. They haven't sold. They tried selling last year. Their agreement has now expired with the real estate agent. The seller's determining what to do. Do they put it back on the market with the same agent? Do they hire a new agent? Do they wait? So we're going to talk about that next. If you'd like to be on the program here, 843-556-1250 is the number, 843-556-1250. And again, if you want to reach out to me personally, 345-1273 or listingsincharleston.com, home of the 2.4% listing commission. Stick around, Charleston. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. We'll be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston. Thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. I always like to take a little time every program just to say thank you to those of you that listen to this program, rely on the information and the advice that I provide to assist you in the planning process, getting toward the time in which you're going to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. So if that's something I can help you with, you're thinking about making a move or an investment this year, I'd invite you to give me a call so we can talk about that off air. My number personally is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 843-345-1273. You can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. Again, 2.4% listing commission to sell your house. You can learn more about who we are, what we do, what we sell, all that fun stuff. More versions of the radio show we've been doing. This is the 5th year I've been doing this program. So all that's on listingsincharleston.com. And we've got about 20 minutes or so left. So if you want to be on the program this morning, you have a question for me, you want to share a story or experience or just want clarity on something, No question too big or too small can be asked here. I'll do the best I can to answer it. The number here is 843-556-1250. So here's what I want to talk about over the next few minutes. Is this process of selling a house that has been on the market before, whether it was a for sale by owner that tried selling their home on their own and it didn't work, or they had it listed with a real estate agent or two or three and it didn't work. Why is the home not selling? What can be done differently? How do we approach this as an agent? Now, I will tell you this, that, I've mentioned that we did almost 200 transactions last year. About 60% of those listings were previously on the market with another real estate agent before we got the listing and sold it. I'm not trying to necessarily plug myself. I'm just trying to tell you that I have some experience in this area. And it's something that I do a lot. I work with the sellers on my team. I have buyer agents that work with agents. So a lot of my time is spent diagnosing issues with sellers that have tried selling in the past and it didn't work out. And there are a few things that usually come up, probably 9 times out of 10, as being reasons why the home didn't sell. But I want to just piggyback first off of what I left you guys with last segment, which was that you get all these showings on your house and it's just not selling. You haven't gotten an offer, or you got an offer, but it was super low, not of interest to you whatsoever. And so what's going on there? So here's one of the things that I've found throughout the course of speaking with all of these sellers over the past 11 years that I've been in the business that have tried selling and it didn't sell, is that the agent, and especially now, because here's the process. All real estate agents in the MLS for Charleston use a third-party company called Showing Time to coordinate the process of having your home shown if you're a seller. So if I'm an agent and I'm representing a buyer, I'm going to call this company and I'm going to say, hey, tomorrow I want to see these 5 homes at these 5 times. The company, which is just a call center, will then call all of those sellers and say, we've got John Doe that wants to see this property between 1 and 2 o'clock tomorrow. Is that okay? They confirm it, and then the company gets back to the agent representing the buyer with an itinerary. So we have this third-party process that coordinates everything for real estate agents. Obviously, the nice thing about that for me as a listing agent that carries a lot of listings and sells a lot of listings is that I don't have to have my phone surgically attached to my face to talk to 500 real estate agents a week that want to show all of my listings. We have a company that does that for us now, so that's great. The problem with that is that it has removed the necessity of a agent representing a buyer speaking to the agent representing the seller before a showing occurs. There could be 100 showings on one of my listings, and I could have not spoken with a single one of those agents if they were just going through Showing Time. I think that's a problem. Obviously, it's a convenience, but it's a problem because it's another thing that agents have now come to rely on as being some sort of systematic, robotic approach to selling real estate, and we have lost the art of selling real estate. We are so quickly moving toward presenters of information and so far away from consultants and salesmen and saleswomen that for the people like me that get it, that see the trend, that see the fact that we're becoming so systematized and so disconnected with the emotions of selling real estate, that, I mean, there's obviously a huge opportunity there. So for us on our team, we like to speak to the agents before they show our property, especially if it's a property that's, high price, that's in a area that, might have some variance to it or has other luxury homes that surround it. Whatever the case might be, we use it as an opportunity to make sure that if somebody walks through our listing and the buyer likes what they see, are they in a position to make an offer? If the answer is, well, we're thinking about retiring in the area in a year or two, and we kind of just want to get a sense for the different areas of Charleston, like Mount Pleasant, Isle of Palms, Somerville, Goose Creek, they're not going to buy something. If you've got a family and you've got a lot going on in your house, you don't want to get kicked out of your house for an hour and clean it for an hour before that. To have someone walk through it that's not going to buy it, just cancel the listing. Or cancel the showing. Not cancel the listing. My God, don't do that. But cancel the showing. It's just a waste of time. So it's for us, we're spending more so than we ever have, and just eliminating tire kickers, trying to save our people some frustration and prevent them from wasting their time and ours, because then I have to chase them down. I have to get feedback, and those agents know they're working with someone that's not going to buy something, so they certainly don't want to take 10, 15 minutes to talk to me about how the showing went There's nothing to report. They're not going to buy it. That's just one example. But I think a lot of that has to do with customer service as it relates to representing our clients. And within that is communication. I have a communication guarantee on my listing agreement. It's in writing, and it says that I'll be in touch with you at least once per week from the time we list until the time we sell. And if I don't, you can fire me. Now, obviously, I have team members that help provide me with some information that I then relay to my clients so we can stay up to date with the market, understand where prices are, understand, do we need to make some sort of a change? Are we doing all the right things and it's just a matter of time before the right buyer comes along? Are we getting good showings? We're just always ranked number 3 or 4 or 5. And is your agent having that conversation with you about what needs to happen for us to be number 1? Not just with those buyers, but as it's perceived by the market in general. Do we need to lower our price? There are several times where I'll represent a listing and we're getting showings. We're just not getting offers. We're 3rd or 4th on the list every time. Other listings are beating us out. Other listings come on the market, they sell, they pass us by, and we're kind of stuck in this revolving door of always being number 3 or number 4 on the list. So in those instances, although it's kind of counterintuitive, if you make a little bit of a price reduction, and I'm not saying that price reductions are the only thing you can do to get a home sold, but sometimes it can help very much. So if you're getting the showings but it's not selling, reduce the price by just a little bit, not a lot. We're not talking about a 5% reduction. Reduce it by 1% or 2. Sometimes that's all it takes. It does work well. Now, if on the other hand, you're on the market and you're hardly getting any showings, you're maybe getting 1 showing a month, unless you're living in a very unique property, chances are you're overpriced. And I'm sorry to say it that bluntly, but that's just the way it is. Regardless of whether the agent's going to tell you that or not, it's more than likely the price, because even if a home is not marketed well, buyers are fairly well educated in this market. They know a good value when they see it. But your agent certainly isn't doing you any favors if they haven't taken professional photography or if they're not investing into their own marketing plan. Most agents out there are just throwing it on the MLS and waiting for other agents to show your home. Here's a really good test. Even if you're on the market right now, go to Zillow or go to Trulia or go to Realtor.com. 3 most highly used websites out there to search for real estate. Look at your listing. Does your listing have your real estate agent on it? Is it even on those websites, first of all? That'd be number 1. Number 2, when you look at that listing, are you seeing just your real estate agent, or are you seeing your real estate agent and then several other real estate agents? If you're seeing your agent plus several other agents, you might want to have a conversation about your agent. I'm not here to tell you that I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to have it be misconstrued that I'm trying to convince you that whatever your agent is doing is wrong, because that's never my approach. I never want to say that what I'm doing is better than any other agent, but what I am doing is different from other agents. And if you've got other agents on your listing on Zillow, Trulia, or Realtor.com, then it's pretty blunt for me to be able to say that you might be having your buyers that are interested in your home contacting other agents. You might be losing opportunities, so you might want to have a chat and see what that looks like with your real estate agent. And if that was the case, if you were on the market and it didn't sell, I think that's a differentiating factor that could make a big difference in whether or not your home gets sold. But as it relates to getting your home sold, if it was on the market and it didn't sell, we have to look at price, condition, and marketing. And that really does take a consultative approach. It takes me walking through the house, looking at what the buyer sees. We look at the home through the eyes of the buyer. And if there are some changes that need to be made, then I'm the blunt guy. I'm not the smoke and mirrors, Mr. Intergalactic Salesman of the Universe type agent. I'm just here to give you some real honest advice. And I want to be able to have those blunt conversations with people. People hire me because, not because I'm, I think blunt can sometimes be synonymous with jerk. And that's never what I want to come across as. I just want to be honest. I want people to trust me enough to say, hey, this is what you need to do. Or I want people to trust me enough to call me and say, Brian, what do we need to do to get this deal done? And then they know that I can give them some honest advice, and it's not driven by my interest in collecting a commission. It's driven by my interest in legitimately doing a good job for them, so that not only do we help them with a transaction, but when someone that they know wants to buy or sell real estate, to say, yeah, you got to call Brian because he knows what he's doing. He's a good guy. So if you're thinking about selling your home this year, it was on the market last year, didn't sell, let's have a chat about that. Call me off air. My number is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 843-345-1273. or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Remember, 2.4% commission to sell your house. All that and more. One more segment, a few minutes left. If you do want to call in, 843-556-1250 is the number here in the studio. We'll take one more break, and we'll be back to finish up this edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I wanted to take the last few minutes of our show to talk about interest rates. There's a lot of, I think, at this point, misinformation and a lot of speculation around interest rates and how it's going to affect our housing market. So, there's an old saying that forecasting is hard, especially if it's about the future. And there's probably nothing harder than forecasting what's going to happen with mortgage rates. And they are determined in the market by such a huge variety of supply and demand factors that are in and of themselves incredibly complex to understand. So these things are things like domestic housing stats, like home sales and construction and credit availability, oil prices, geopolitical developments, so many other things. But despite all of these bold claims among experts, there is nobody out there with a perfect track record of forecasting interest rates. And I don't think it's realistic, quite frankly, to point to some sort of oracle to tell us what's going to happen with regard to interest rates anytime soon. So the broad trends can be seen in the mortgage market that provide some insight into how someone like myself runs my business, which is to advise my clients on how to best take advantage of the market to help them buy or sell something at the best price and the best terms possible. But the reality is that for quite a few years now, analysts have kind of missed the mark. Mortgage rates fell further and stayed lower than virtually any analyst had foreseen. And so, having kind of misunderstood this trend, many in the housing market missed out on opportunities to take advantage of extended periods of incredibly high affordability in this market. And so, at this point, I think there's a risk that everyone in the market believes that rates just can't go a fair amount higher. And that in and of itself, I think, may be as big a mistake as not seeing the prolonged decline in interest rates in the first place. And look, there are several reasons why interest rates could increase this year. And so I've looked all over and I do my research. I use this in my consultative approach with my clients. And here's what I'm finding is that the unemployment rate is at 4.6%, which is historically very low. And this could be a signal, of course, of rising wages and price growth and wage increases, so on and so forth in 2017. The price of oil has started to rebound sharply, which is starting to kind of rekindle some inflation fears. The incoming Trump administration, which is obviously a big deal, may be poised to institute some tax cuts and some spending increases, which could help with regard to the economic growth and perhaps inflation and the budget deficit. And then you've got regulatory reform on the mortgage side of things that can loosen up some credit standards and boost some demand for mortgages. And then you've got some policy uncertainty as it regards to risk premiums to long-term fixed income assets like mortgages. So you take all these things into consideration, and look, there are reasons why it could go up as well, but I think the reason why we're kind of in this haze is because of that taper tantrum that we had back in 2013 where Ben Bernanke gave a speech saying that they were going to start slowing or tapering, quote unquote, its purchases of securities. And that was part, of course, their quantitative easing, the QE program. So when that happened, interest rates went from 3.5% to 4.5% almost overnight. Then it corrected and it went down to about 3.6%. And last year, we were at the second lowest interest rate in history. So will interest rates rise? Yes, I do think they will. When? We're not sure. We think that they're going to happen at least twice this year. We've heard at least 3 times in 2018. And then, of course, 2019 and 2020 might see some as well. But as a buyer, here's my advice. If you see something you like, buy it now. If you're a seller, here's my advice. If you want to sell your home and move, do it. don't get so caught up in all this buzz that it prevents you and handicaps you from making a decision that can benefit you and your family. And if that's something I can help you with, give me a call, 843-345-1273, or go to my website, Listings in Charleston, home of the 2.4% listing commission to sell your home. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.